Washington's primary election is on August 1st, and we want to help you get to know your local candidates. So on The Tea with Amanda Roley, I sit down with all 5 candidates running for Spokane mayor to discuss who they are and where they stand on important issues. Here's what they told me over tea. Nadine Woodward, thank you for joining me here on The Tea with Amanda Roley.
Good to be here.
To talk about your campaign. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. This is awesome. And loving the tea.
Well, I have to ask you, that's my first tough question to start us out here. What did you decide to drink today?
Well, I got the butterfly lemonade, which is actually made from their blue tea, and it's purple, which I think is quite fitting for the Lilac City.
Well, so let's dive into it. You're running for re-election. You're near the end of your first term as mayor. So looking forward, what are your plans now to focus on increasing public safety in Spokane?
The concentration is on staffing the department to the size that we need to staff. What does that look like? Where are we going to get the funding for that?
So some people in the community are not happy with Spokane Police Chief Craig Meidel. Do you think the chief was justified in giving those downtown business owners the level of access and data and information that he did?
I want our police chief to be engaged in all communities. When the downtown community came and they said, you know, we have issues downtown. We want to work with the city and with the police department to come up with solutions. And that's what he did.
So you think he was justified?
Absolutely. That's why I didn't have HR perform an investigation of that.
How do you explain not initiating an investigation to constituents who are simply asking for transparency or are concerned that may show a lack of transparency?
These, Amanda, are anti-police advocates, and that's not what they want.
So your opponent, Lisa Brown, she's criticized you about the last 3 years in office, saying your administration has stalled the progress of the city. She points to excessive turnovers and too much conflict among staff. Spill the tea. What do you say to that?
Wow. Well, you know, this is a tough time to be a leader of an organization that's 2,000 plus employees. When I came into office, half of the cabinet was either an interim or vacant. I mean, we have the same amount of turnover of any corporation.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
I tell you, one of the things, there's several things, but the one that I'm really excited about, that I'm excited to work on in the next term, is this regional homeless authority.
Well, I can't talk about homelessness without bringing up Camp Hope. What is your take on how that was handled from the formation of the homeless encampment near I-90 to its closure?
This started out as a protest, but it got out of hand. And so we said, we have a facility with all the wraparound services.
What are the lessons learned?
Doing the right thing doesn't always get you the result you want, but you still have to do the right thing. We did the right thing in engaging the state in this. They have assured us that there's not going to be another Camp Hope on WashDOT property. We're going to hold them to their word.
Well, thank you so much, Nadine, for
thank
talking
you.
through all of
Thank
this
you.
with me. Good luck to you
Thank
on
you.
your re-election campaign.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. And thanks for the tea.
Lisa Brown, running for mayor here. Thank you so much for joining me on The Tea with Amanda Roley. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thanks, Amanda. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we'll start out. I'd like to find out what kind of tea you decided to drink today.
I went with the Japanese matcha on ice.
First of all, tell me, why did you decide to run for Spokane mayor?
Well, I was the director of commerce, and I saw our city just not moving forward in some key areas. And I thought this is the time when I could bring my experience from the legislature and from WSU, Spokane, to the city I love.
Your opponent has criticized you as a career politician with no actual plan to improve safety or crime in Spokane. Spill the tea for me. What do you say to that?
Well, it's wrong, it's false. When I declared for mayor in March, I immediately went on a listening tour and I published a public safety agenda that right now is a blueprint that I can enact as soon as I'm elected.
What is your plan, Lisa, to increase public safety?
One aspect is clearly law enforcement, and law enforcement has to be funded, accountable, get the kind of training that they need. Another pillar of public safety has to be a plan to address homelessness.
What would you say were some lessons learned out of the formation and closure of Camp Hope?
Getting the actual housing to move them to was part of the challenge.
But I think the biggest criticism is just how long the camp stuck around.
The negative impacts for the neighborhood were really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate that the city's response to the state effort was to sue and litigate rather than sit down at the table and cooperate.
Do you think Camp Hope would have closed by June 9th had this lawsuit not been introduced?
Oh, absolutely. There was already a plan in place.
Do you think Chief Meidel was justified in giving downtown business owners the level of access and information that he did?
I think the buck stops not with the chief, but with the mayor. The chief reports to the mayor.
You've criticized Woodward's administration, saying it's stalled the city's progress and pointing to excessive turnover and too much conflict. So how will your administration be different?
There may need to be some changes, but I will make that decision quickly, and then with the team, we'll set some priorities. I'll set a big table for a transition committee.
What would you do as mayor to address the growing pains we're feeling because of this population growth in our community?
We definitely need more housing. One of the things we have to pay attention to, however, is we need the infrastructure that supports a good neighborhood. And I'd like to see more housing, particularly what they call middle housing, which really works for young families starting out.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for sitting down and spilling the tea with me on who you are and your campaign as mayor.
Thanks, Amanda.
Patrick McKann, thank you for joining me on The Tea with Amanda Roley. Love having you here, and we could talk through your campaign. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we both have the tea and I have the questions, so we'll have you spill the tea on who you are here in just a second. But first of all, let's find out, what tea did you decide to drink today?
I had a green tea because I'm already over-caffeinated, and they said it was called Young Hyssop.
Tell me why you decided to run for Spokane mayor.
I decided to run because, just as a regular citizen, I found increasingly over the past couple of years that the city bureaucracy was completely out of touch with people who live in neighborhoods and pay the taxes.
How so?
The speeding has gotten so bad in our neighborhood that we're basically afraid to let our kids go visit friends. The street is completely unregulated, no speed limit signs. We just figured the city didn't know there was a problem there. So we let them know. 5 years later, I found myself running for mayor because there has been absolutely zero action.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do for a living?
Everyone seems to brand me as the yurt maker candidate.
I've heard that, the yurt maker, yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. I do build yurts.
Okay.
I do have a small company to do that.
How would you say your experience and education as a wildlife biologist, a research analyst, and an up-and-coming business owner, how has that prepared you potentially to be Spokane's next mayor?
I just want people to know that I do have this mathematical side of me, an analytical side of me. What is more important is that I plan on returning the bureaucracy to the average person.
What does that mean?
As mayor, I would want to personally attend neighborhood councils because that is the most grassroots part of our city democracy.
Camp Hope. I want to hear, what is your take on how things were handled from the encampment's formation to its closure?
Anything that big can't be allowed to happen anymore. However, I did think it was better than them sleeping in parks. It was better than them sleeping downtown. So essentially, I just think we need to stop pretending that this homeless issue is going to go away.
Spokane Police Chief Craig Meidel, do you think the chief was justified in giving these downtown business owners this level of access and information that he did?
In a sense, I feel like the access and the information that he provided to them should be available to everybody in Spokane.
Would you have initiated an investigation into Chief Meidel?
Yes. I mean, I don't know Chief Meidel personally. I would love to meet him. I would love to hear more about this situation. I advocate for total transparency of the police department.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for joining me here and spilling the tea on who you are.
Thank you.
Kelly Stevens, thank you for joining me here on The T with Amanda Roley to talk about your campaign running for Spokane mayor. Happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. A little break from potholes.
Potholes, yeah, we're going to get to that in
Yep.
just a second. Before we get going, first question I ask all of our candidates is, what sort of tea did you decide to sip on with me today?
I am trying the licorice tea.
Why did you want to run for Spokane mayor?
I wanted to work for the city. I wanted to be a part of the team that takes care of the city, and so that's why I'm at where I'm at. And if I can do that on a grand scale, that's what I want to do.
You mentioned that's why I'm at where I'm at. Where are you at right now?
I'm at the streets department, and I fill potholes.
Tell me about that. You came in literally from work today, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to wear nice clothes today and get them gross. So
What sort of changes would you like to see in the city if you're elected mayor?
this is a hot topic for me, is gang violence that we've got going on.
Yeah, we've seen an uptick in drive-by shootings,
Drive-by
violent
shootings,
crimes.
and it's our kids that are doing this. When a kid that you know is telling you that he knows the shooters and he knows the kids being shot, it feels like it's only a matter of time to when is that brought to your house. Our gang task force that we have, we need to find the strong points that it has and run with it. We need to find the weak points and redo some things. Able to get our kids safe again, we may be able to rein in some of the drug problems that we're seeing downtown. Last year, I had to give someone CPR. I was in the pothole truck and saw somebody trying to do CPR and really struggling.
I understand you won an award for that life-saving.
I did.
I'd like to hear, Kelly, what is your take on how things were handled from the formation of the homeless encampment on I-90 to its closure?
I guess in theory, it felt like a great idea to move into a single spot where we could provide resources for everybody. But some of the other things that came along with that changed it from an okay idea to it's really rough on the neighborhood.
So you see it as somewhat of a benefit.
But right there, maybe not the best place.
What steps would you take as mayor to prepare for this influx of people moving and growing in Spokane?
I want to see us building up more so than building out. We only have so much ground space, but we've got a lot of skyline.
What makes you stand out, Kelly, against your opponents?
I'm dirty.
You're dirty.
I've got the bright orange shirt on. How are you not gonna see me? I'm extremely real. Everything I want to do is to help make our city amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly. It was a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you.
Tim Archer, thank you for joining me here on The T with Amanda Roley to talk about your campaign for Spokane mayor. Happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Amanda.
Yeah. So let's start out. I got to ask what kind of tea you're decided to sip on with me
It
today.
is their campfire tea.
So Tim, tell me, why did you decide to run for Spokane mayor?
Well, I have to confess, I was talking to you a couple years ago during the mandate, and I said the mayor took my job, so I'm taking hers. But since then, and then I cooled off. That's not a good reason to run. So I've observed what's happened over the years with the soft on crime legislation and the low barrier shelters. And I know things can be better.
You're former president of the Spokane Firefighters Union.
That's correct.
How long did you serve as a firefighter for Spokane?
For 20 years.
I spoke with Mayor Woodward on her campaign for re-election, and she says your job has been there. It's been brought back. Did you ever try to get rehired into the Spokane Fire Department?
I requested a reinstatement last fall because the governor lifted the mandate.
Right.
But I was informed by HR at the time that they were going to bring me back at entry-level pay, make me the most junior driver on the job.
It wasn't worth it to you to come back at that entry-level pay and rank.
It's not so much the pay and the rank, it was an issue of dignity.
Well, Tim, we have seen in the last few years just a huge uptick in drive-by shootings, violent crime in our community. So what would you do as mayor to address that?
I want to make Spokane the most uncomfortable city in the state for criminals. And at the same time, I want to make it the most welcoming and safest city in the state for our law-abiding citizens and visitors.
That's a pretty bold statement. How are you going to do it?
We need to empower law enforcement. We need to change the culture out there that's always implying that we need police reform.
Do you think Chief Meidel was justified in the level of access he gave downtown business owners to that data and information that he did?
Yes, I do. And I don't know the full details,
Sure.
but I would assume that he would have given it to other people who would have asked as well. I would have dealt with it by having it investigated by a member of the city administration or myself personally.
What is your take on the formation of Camp Hope and its closure?
It was handled with a lack of decisiveness. It never should have gone that long. What I would support are high barrier shelters like the Union Gospel Mission with their 180 beds. Now,
But with high barrier shelters, I mean, that is what the protests from Camp Hope originated out of, was the need for more low barrier
Correct.
shelters. But you're saying that's not the answer?
that's not the answer.
You're running against 4 other mayoral candidates.
Yes, I
Tim.
am.
What's going to make you stand out in this race?
I am the only conservative candidate.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for spilling the tea with me on
You
who you
betcha.
are as you run for Spokane mayor.
Thanks for having me.
These are only snippets of my interviews with these candidates. You can watch the full interviews on the KREM 2 YouTube page. Thanks for watching.